All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is a show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, and we're going to continue our breakdown of the men's basketball race as we head into the final 3 games of the season. Some teams have 3 games, some have 2, but we are in the final few days of the season. We have a game on Monday, game on Thursday, game on Saturday, then the season will be done. So we're going to go ahead and break down what happened after yesterday's action. And we'll be back on Tuesday to do the same thing about Monday's games, and Friday for Thursday games, and then Sunday for Saturday games. And also Saturday, after Saturday, we'll have our tournament preview. So we in the thick of action. Is March, and it's the best time of basketball. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Y'all can check out bustingbrackets.com. My latest power rankings are up. I'll have another one dropping sometime this week. And also in that article, I'll be talking about each team's chances of making where I think they'll finish to get in the standings to get to the tournament. So you can catch that on bustingbrackets.com, or you can find a link on my socials. Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel while you're here. Like the video, share it. Feel free to comment your thoughts on who's gonna take it all, who gonna miss out on the tournament, who you think a surprise team, who gonna flame out, all of that. We could talk about it all in the comments. So with that being said, man, let's go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna start off at the bottom like we always do and make our way up to the top. Number 12 is Valley. Obviously, they are out. They're 1-15. They lost to Pine Bluff on Saturday, so that dropped them to 1-15. They have 2 games left. At Jackson and at Alcorn. I think they're probably going to lose both of those games on the road and finish out at 1-17. Rough season for Valley, but it was good for them to at least get a win and not finish the season winless. So they'll finish my projection at 1-17 and finish in the 12th spot. Next is number 11, FAMU. They are also out. They are 4-12 right now. They can't get in now. They have 2 games left. They can't get in regardless of what happens. So they finish out at Southern and at home against Bethune-Cookman. I think they'll finish in that 11th spot, and I think they're gonna drop these last 2 games and finish 4-14. Although I do think they have a good chance of beating Southern. Southern's not playing great right now, so I would not be surprised if they beat them. But I'm not picking them to beat Southern, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. And like I said, I think they're gonna drop those last 2 games. Prairie View is 5-11. They have 2 games left, and I feel like I think they're out. There's not a lot of action in front of them left as far as the teams in front of them. All the teams in front of them, they have 2 games left as well. So there's no real way that they can get in. So I'm basically saying that they're out. They finished at home against Jackson State and at Texas Southern. I think they'll drop those last 2 games and finish the season at 5-13 and in the 10th spot. So I don't see any changes in the bottom 3. Bama State dropped a big game to Alabama A&M last night, and that dropped them to 7-9 and put them in the 9th spot. They are on the outside looking in right now. They finish at home against Southern and Grambling next week. Well, this week, Thursday and Saturday. I think that I'm picking them to finish at their number 9 spot. I think they'll drop both of those games again. I think they do have a chance to beat Southern. Southern's not playing good ball right now, so it's not a formality that Southern will win this game. I can see Southern dropping this game, but I think Bama State right now they're not really playing great ball. They have the ability, they have the talent, but they're just not playing great ball, and I think they're gonna miss out on the tournament and finish at 7-11. If they were to finish in any kind of tie with the teams who are basically ahead of them, they do have a tiebreaker over UAPB. They beat them by a plus 3 point differential. They lost the tiebreaker to Alabama A&M. Oh no, they won the tiebreaker against Alabama A&M by a 12-point differential. They lost the tiebreaker against Jackson State. They only played once, and they're 0-1 in that. So they don't have a lot of maneuverability right now. Their chances of making it, they have to win out first and foremost, and they need somebody ahead of them to drop 2 games. So they, 9-9 is the best they can do. Playing 2 games at home, it's not impossible, but I don't think that they'll get there. They may take 1 out of 2, but I don't know if they'll take them both. So I think they're gonna be the team out. So right now, our 7 and 8 teams are tied at 8 and 8. Right now, Alabama A&M sits in the 8th spot because they win the tiebreaker over Pine Bluff. They swept Pine Bluff 2 games to nothing. So they are sitting in a good spot right there. They That makes Pine Bluff the 8th spot. So right now, Pine Bluff finishes out at Jackson State and at Alcorn, and then at Jackson State. I think they are gonna drop both of those games. Those 2 teams are battling it out for a top 4 seed, and I think they'll both be focused in these final 2 games. So I think that they'll win those games against Pine Bluff. And I think Pine Bluff's gonna finish at 8 and 10, but get in as the 8th seed, and they will be a dangerous 8th seed. With their shooting and the offense, they can definitely win a game in the tournament. The fact that they're not a consistent team and the fact that they're not a great defensive team will also mean that they could easily be out in the first round. So they have a little bit of maneuverability under their belt by virtue of being 8 and 8. They don't have a tiebreaker over many people at all. So they need to avoid ties. They need to beat Jackson State by more than 14 points or more to win that tiebreaker. So they are in danger of being in a bad spot if they end up tied with anybody in that round, in that 6, 7, 8, 9 realm. So Pine Bluff, out of anybody, really needs to win games, and I don't know if they'll win both of those games. They may be able to take one, but right now I don't think they will. And that leads us to our number 7 team, Alabama A&M. Like I said, the Bulldogs beat Bama State yesterday in a big game. Not enough to win the tiebreaker over the Hornets because they lost by a bigger margin. So they find themselves in a decent spot at 8 and 8. They play Grambling and Southern this week. I think they'll split those 2 games and finish 9 and 9, which puts them pretty solidly in, most likely at that 7th spot. So I don't think they have a lot to worry about. If they could win both of those games, which they beat Grambling once already, and they played Southern really, really tough. If they could win both of those games and finish at 10 and 8, they can find themselves 5 off, even 4, depending on what's going on with the people in front of them. So the Bulldogs have a nice opportunity to jump in the standings in the last 2 games. So keep an eye on this team. Again, they don't play pretty ball, but they have the size. They have some physicality. They do have guys that can score, but they kind of bang you around more than they outrun you. So facing a team like that is a matchup problem for some teams. And having a big guy a big guy like EJ Williams that starts, that can really get in there and cause havoc with his size, can hurt some of these teams who don't have much size inside. Tucker and Peak are guys who can score the ball for the Bulldogs. So they are a dangerous opponent. And like I said, I think they'll continue their up and down season and finish at 9 and 9, which will put them at the 7th seed. The number 6 spot right now belongs to Jackson State. They close out with 3 games left. They go to Prairie View, and they close out at home against Pine Bluff and Valley. Very manageable 3 games to end the season, coming off of a game against TSU that they led for a good stretch before a late run to TSU caused them to lose by 10. So they find themselves in a spot where they can climb with a solid finish, or if they were to slump, they can fall. They could be on the if they were to drop a couple of those games, they could be on the verge of not making the tournament. But I think they'll finish in that 6th spot. I think they'll finish at 11 and 7. I think they find themselves, winning these last 3 games because these are manageable 3 games. Prairie View is not playing that great. Pine Bluff's going to be a tougher game out of the 3, and Valley, is Valley, and it's on the road for Valley, so it's a tough matchup for the Delta Devils on the road. And I think Jackson can win all 3 of those games to get themselves back on track. They've lost 2 in a row after winning 4 in a row, so they've been a bit streaky, but they have guys like Evans who can put the ball in the basket, Jordan O'Neal who can be a force inside and help this team really be a factor once they get in the tournament. So I think right now the safe bet is to put them at 6, but if anybody above them falters, they could climb even higher than that. So I think they are a team who can finish, depending on how things go, they could finish 3, 4, 5, or 6, or they could finish 7 or 8, depending on their realm of movement. Honestly, is so varied that I think 6 is probably the best spot for them. They don't have a lot of tiebreakers. They do have tiebreakers over Bama A&M and Bama State. They played both them teams once and beat them that time. They lost tiebreaker to Bethune-Cookman by -10 point differential. Lost the tiebreaker to Alcorn by -6 point differential. They lost the tiebreaker to Southern 1-0, and Grambling 1-0. They lost the tiebreaker to Texas Southern by -1 point differential. They do lead Pine Bluff 1 game to nothing with another game coming up. They won that game by 13 points, so they will have to lose to Pine Bluff by 14 to lose that tiebreaker. So I think they are in pretty good shape of winning that tiebreaker. So that's very important with a team who is fighting it out for that last spot. But I think JSU is pretty solidly in, and I think right now they're going to finish at that 6th spot. Bethune-Cookman is number 5, coming off of a big victory on the road against Southern. They go to Grambling tomorrow, which is a huge game. I think that's a game that they have a chance. They did lose to Grambling by 11 at home, so they would have to beat Grambling by they lost to Grambling by 10 at home, so they would need to win by at least 11 to give them an opportunity for a tiebreaker. But I don't really think tiebreakers in Grambling are going to matter much. But they finished at Grambling at FAMU to close out their season at 10-6 right now. They're in the 5 spot by themselves. They could climb if anybody was to lose, and they do have a tiebreaker over Southern. They swept them. They don't have a tiebreaker over Alcorn. Alcorn swept them. They win the tiebreaker, like I say. They lose the tiebreaker over to Alabama A&M by because they got swept in that matchup. They lose the tiebreaker to Pine Bluff. Well, they lose the tiebreaker to Alabama A&M because they -2 point differential. They lose the tiebreaker to Pine Bluff 1 game to nothing. And like I said, they need to beat Grambling by at least 11. And they beat TSU 1-0, so they hold that tiebreaker and beat Jackson State by a 10 point differential. So they're in a good spot with a lot of tiebreakers under their belt. They can win both of these games and finish out at 12-6, but I think they'll split them and finish at 11-7, and that will put them in a tie with JSU. But they win the tiebreaker over JSU, so that will give them the number 5 spot. So I think the Wildcats are in a good spot, and that's a tough matchup for anybody who is the 4th spot if they finish 5th. Zion Harmon, oh my God! Last night he hit some big threes, just from deep range. And like I say, you have Jacoby Heddy and all those guys, who can put the ball in the basket, and they play tough, scrappy ball. They don't really do a lot of things really pretty, but they can really be a factor and win a couple games in the tournament if they make it. So that's probably my dark horse in the tournament is Bethune-Cookman. If I do have an article on Bethune-Cookman, so if you haven't read it yet, check out bustingbrackets.com. And I have an article talking about why I think Bethune-Cookman is one of the better teams in the league. So I'm really high on the Wildcats. I think they have a great chance if they can finish anywhere and get in, which they will be in. I think they have a chance of making a run in the tournament. So watch out for the Wildcats. Right now, Alcorn is 4th. I think they'll stay there. I don't really see a lot of changes in the top portion of the standings. So basically, where teams are now is where I think they're probably going to finish. Although there is a possibility for movement, but I think Alcorn they close out at Texas Southern and then home against Valley and Pine Bluff. I think TSU can win that game. I had them losing that game to Alcorn, but that victory over Jackson State last night kind of swayed me the other way. Alcorn is still tough, and they won, I think, 6 games in a row. They had a tough battle with Prairie View, which, playing on the road, you can always have those kind of games. But I think if they don't play up to the level that they've played already, TSU will beat them. And I think TSU is one of the top 2 teams in the conference right now. So I don't, I kind of switched that one, and I have the Braves finishing at 12-6, 2-1 in those last 3 games. I think they beat Valley and Pine Bluff at home to close out the season. When it comes to tiebreakers, the Braves don't have a lot. They do have a tiebreaker over Jackson State with a plus 6-point differential, and they swept Bethune-Cookman 2-0, which is very important. They lose tiebreakers to Southern and Grambling. Both only played those teams once, and they lost to them. So they don't have that, and they lost to TSU, so they would have to beat Texas Southern. Let me see if I can find that score. But they would need to beat TSU to even have a chance at the tiebreaker. So I think Alcorn, I think they are in a decent spot. The tiebreakers of the teams ahead of them is probably what's going to keep them from advancing further, because I still think they're going to finish tied with Southern. So I think in that aspect, it's going to be tough for them to jump Southern if they finish tied, because those 2 teams only played the one time and Southern beat them. Let's see what he. All right, let's. Oh, come on. I'm not seeing this game. I don't know why. All right, Texas Southern beat Alcorn by 11. So the Braves will have to win this game tomorrow by 12 points or more to win that tiebreaker. So first and foremost, you need to get the win. Then secondly, you need to win this game by at least 12 points to get yourself the tiebreaker, which is very important since the possibility of these 2 teams finishing tied is huge. But I think, like I said, with Alcorn having really no tiebreakers against the 3 teams in front of them, they cannot afford to finish tied with any of those teams if they want to jump any of them. So right now, that's why I think they sit in the 4th spot, because I do think they're going to finish 12-6. And I think they're going to finish tied with Southern. Southern's 10-5. They've lost 3 in a row. They have not looked good in any of these 3 games. They've jumped out to big leads against Grambling and Bethune-Cookman and let them both go. This team does not shoot free throws well, which definitely hurts you in this time of the year. They still have a really good defense. Defensively, they don't give up a lot of points, but they haven't really been scoring the ball well in recent games. And like I said, the lack of free throw shooting, that's just detrimental. It's crazy to even see this team at the number 3 spot shooting free throws the way they do. They're ahead of schedule because they were picked to finish 5th, which is still possible. These 3 games Southern has left are not a cakewalk. A couple weeks ago, I probably would have gave them a really great chance of winning all 3 of these games, but right now, I honestly feel like they could easily lose all 3 of these games. But I still think they're gonna find a way. No matter how ugly it is, they're probably gonna find a way to win at least 2 of these 3 and finish 12-6, which puts them in a tie with Alcorn. And they will win the tiebreaker in that spot and get the 3 seeds. So they have to win Monday. Monday is a must win. You definitely can't lose to the 11th place team and continue your losing streak, knowing that you have to go on the road to tough environments for your last 2 games. So for Southern, it all starts tomorrow. Tomorrow's a must win. When it comes to tiebreakers, they don't have a lot against the teams who they're battling out right now. The only team they have a tiebreaker over that they probably could finish tied with is Alcorn. And maybe Jackson State. They have a tiebreaker over both of those teams, just for in case something crazy happens. They do have a tiebreaker over Pine Bluff, 1-0. Right now, they lead Alabama A&M. I think they beat them by like 7. So they had the Bulldogs had to beat Southern by at least 8 to win that tiebreaker. So they don't have a lot of tiebreakers ahead of them. They lose the tiebreaker to Texas Southern by minus 5-point differential. Grambling and Bethune-Cookman both swept them. So they don't have a lot of maneuverability either. They can really ill afford to finish tied with anybody, honestly. They would have to win out. They would have to win out and hope TSU lost to get that 2 spot. They would have to win out, and they would need Grambling to flame out to get a regular season championship. So right now, I think Southern is probably 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th. But right now, I think they can win 2 out of these 3 games and get that 3rd spot, finishing tied with Alcorn at 12-6. That takes us to our new number 2 team, and that's Texas Southern. They're 11-5. They close out at home against Alcorn and Prairie View. I do think they'll win both of these games and finish at 13-5 and solidly in the 2 spot. Again, TSU is a team that they know how to win when they get in the tournament. Where they finish, it doesn't matter. It only matters when the tournament starts. So being that this whole tournament is neutral site, I don't really think seeding matters that much. Matchups matter more than seeding in the SWAC tournament this season. So really an 8 seed could win this tournament, or the 1 seed could run through it, or anybody else. I don't think there's honestly no huge divide between anybody. So being that's the case, and there's no home court advantage for anybody, you just want to get in. And TSU should get in at that 2 spot at 13-5. Like I said, I think they win their last 2 games. They lose the tiebreaker to Grambling by minus 1 point differential. They win the tiebreaker over Jackson State with a plus 1 point differential. Right now, they lead Alcorn 1-0. They win the tiebreaker against Southern with a plus 5-point differential, and they only played Bethune-Cookman 1 time and they lost. So they have a lot of tiebreakers that are very vital, and that Alcorn game is huge tomorrow. So that game's gonna shake up the standings a little bit more. Today's standings are kind of more chalk than anything, and the number 1 team is Grambling. I think Grambling's gonna win out, and they close out home against Bethune-Cookman, at Alabama A&M, and at Bama State. I think they'll win all 3 and finish at 15-3 and win the regular season. They are my pick to win the tournament. They are good right now. That Bethune-Cookman game is huge. Bethune-Cookman, they're playing really good ball. They could go to Grambling and win. Grambling has lost 3 games at home, so you always got to take that into account. For some reason, they just haven't played the best at home, but I think they'll survive, and they'll survive that road trip in Bama and come out at 15-3. So that gives us basically not much change in the standings. From the standings to my seedings. Right now, Grambling would be my 1 seed, Texas Southern my 2 seed, Southern 3, Alcorn 4, Bethune-Cookman 5, Jackson State 6, Alabama A&M 7, and Pine Bluff 8. Bama State, Prairie View, FAMU, and Valley would all be out. So that would mean first round matchup, Pine Bluff against Grambling. That would be a really interesting game, a clash of styles. Texas Southern and Alabama A&M, another kind of clash of styles. Jackson State and Southern would be a definitely interesting matchup. Those 2 teams battled in their only matchup. And then Alcorn and Bethune-Cookman. Alcorn is one of the few teams that had a lot of success against Bethune-Cookman. So that could be something to help the Braves if they match up. So those are all 4 good first round matchups. And like I said, there's no game that I would say that the top seed just going to walk to the semis. So that leads to a lot of really good second round matchups. Just for example, Grambling and Bethune-Cookman in the second round, Grambling and Alcorn in the second round would both be big games, great games. You know, or if Pine Bluff was to make it, you know, who knows? But those two games would be a great second round matchup. Texas Southern and Jackson State would be a great matchup. Texas Southern and excuse me, Texas Southern and Alabama and then would be an yeah, Jackson State, that's 6 seed. Texas Southern and Jackson State would be a great second round matchup. Southern against Alabama and them again would be a interesting matchup. Southern and TSU obviously would be a great second round matchup. So there are a lot of great matchups, and then anybody in the championship game would be great on both sides. So I think this is a really good bracket, and I really do think that the bracket is probably going to finish like this, minus maybe a change in that 3, 4, 5 spot. There might be some shakeup there, but right now that's where we stand. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC signing out. C. Wells. Don't forget Monday action tomorrow. Yeah, Monday games coming at you. We have Grambling hosting Bethune-Cookman, Southern hosting Florida A&M. We have Alcorn at Texas Southern, and Jackson State is at Prairie View. Just to give you a rundown of the rest of the week, Thursday, March 7th, Pine Bluff is at Jackson State, Valley is at Alcorn, Grambling is at Alabama A&M, and Southern at Bama State. And the final day of the season is Saturday, March 9th, Valley at Jackson State, Bethune-Cookman at FAMU, Pine Bluff at Alcorn, Southern at Alabama A&M, Grambling at Alabama State, and Prairie View at Texas Southern. So that's all that we have left. We have 3 days of SWAC basketball left, 3 games for some teams, 2 for others. So not a lot of action left. Tournament starts next week, you know, the following week. So we'll be ready, man. We'll be here to cover it all from start to finish, previews, recaps, and all the whole 9 on the SWAC tournament. And we'll talk about whatever matchup the SWAC gets in the NCAA tournament. Again, no auto bid for the number 1 seed into the NIT. So it's either win or you go home. There's no ace in your pocket anymore for being the number 1 seed and getting knocked out of the tournament. So if you lose as the number 1 team, you don't go anywhere unless your record may be good enough to get you in NIT, but I'm not quite sure right now. So with that being said, I'm your tour guide signing out. We'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.